All right, rock and roll. Welcome one, welcome all to the Scorched Earth Political Podcast. I am your host, John, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Happy Black Friday if this is when this falls to you. And it's a celebration of love, right? It's one of the happiest holidays for me this year. It's not all about the money. It's not all about the gifts. It's about family and community. And I do think, like I've said before, that I think this administration is the antithesis of building community. They want to build walls. They want to divide us. They want us to be hating each other. And when we hate each other, we cannot look at them and the egregious corrupt behavior that they are espousing and enacting each and every day. All right, if you could hit that like and subscribe button, feel free to drop a comment, friend or foe. I answer them all. And let's get to it. Let's burn it all to the ground here on a beautiful Thanksgiving. And we're doing this on Thursday evening. I got my little friends here in the background. And it's somber because National Guardswoman Sarah Beckstrom passed away today. And her and a fellow colleague in the National Guard were targeted by a lone gunman from the state of Washington. And they were shot as they were deployed into Washington, D.C. It angers me on so many levels. I don't even know really where to start. First of all, where I'm going to go here is basically I'm going to take a page out of the Donald Trump playbook, and that's where he blames everybody, whether it's actually 100% right or it's even 0% right. He blames everybody. Well, this falls at his doorstep. You know, if you remember correctly, after Charlie Kirk was killed, you know, they immediately jumped on it's all the left wing. It's all the left wing. Then, of course, they found out that it was somebody brought up in a right-wing household, in a right-wing state, at a right-wing college. And because he had some type of relationship with somebody of a transgender orientation, he immediately became left-wing 4 days later. We know that's all BS. I'm trying to calm my language here. So they immediately always lash out. And the initial response from the White House was that this was somebody from Afghanistan. They started blaming Joe Biden. They were going on. Let's go back in the time capsule. 2 months ago, Donald Trump declared that he was going to bring the National Guard into Washington, D.C. Now, why did he do that? He tried it in Los Angeles. He tried to bring the Marines into Los Angeles. He was rebuffed. He was rebuted. And he had mixed success there. Then he threatened to do it to Chicago, threatened to do it to Portland, you know, things like that. But Washington, D.C. was the one place he could do that unfettered. The President of the United States, because it is the District of Columbia, it's not a state, it's not a municipality, it is sovereign to the United States federal government. He could do it without any checks and balances. So he brought the National Guard in, claiming that there was a crisis of crime. Of course, crime had been going down the last 2 years, thank you, Joe Biden. And from all the photos we saw, basically, these people had been deployed from other states, all Republican, and they were picking up trash on the National Mall. They were doing traffic things. They were basically walking. You know, we have the one incident previous to this where somebody threw a sandwich at one of the National Guardsmen. Well, it turned out that was the initial report. Then it turned out to be an ICE agent. And Donald Trump manufactured this crisis and brought these people. The Guards people who were shot, one still in critical condition, were from West Virginia. That is run by Governor Price. He sent them, Republican, couldn't send them quick enough to the Dark Master. Now, you know, when people sign up for the National Guard, typically what happens is they go to places that are under duress, have suffered a disaster, they need help. Well, Donald Trump is trying to flex his muscle as the tyrant in waiting that he wants to be. This is all on Donald Trump. So what happens after they get shot, they start throwing it on the Biden administration. I'm going to be as honest as I can here. I wish I could just be like Fox News or Newsmax or One Nation and just lie my way through it, just totally deflect. What happened was After the Afghanistan war came to an end, thank you, Joe Biden, the one that Donald Trump signed an end to, but of course didn't end it during his administration. Like everybody else, he pushes it to the next guy. What he did is Afghani citizens, people there who collaborated, who helped the United States when we were waging war in that country. He gave them visas. He allowed them to come to the United States because basically what would happen is the Taliban was going to kill them. Whatever entity opposed them was going to literally kill them and their families. So Joe Biden, being the moral, beautiful human being he was, allowed them to have asylum visas. He allowed them to come over to America as they went through the process. Now, this gentleman, this gunman, went through the process under the Biden administration, but it was not approved until April of this year. Fun fact, the president in April of this year, sadly, was Donald Trump. So now they're trying to do a backpedal because they wanted to blame Biden. And now, HHS is saying, we're going to thoroughly review. Well, why didn't you do it in April? Oh, wait, was it because of Doge cuts? Was it because Kristi Noem needed some fashion shoot down there in San Salvador prison? Was it because she needed two $200 million jets? Which one? Or, oh, wait, D, all of the above. Donald Trump manufactured this crisis. He got Republican governors to bring these people to Washington, D.C., and he approved the visa. That's 3 for 3. 3 strikes, you're out. I wish we could use the 25th Amendment and get this son of a bitch out of here. But happy Thanksgiving. All right, I want to get to a story. Because we are dealing with the conflict of Ukraine and Russia and trying to figure out a way that we can get Ukraine to capitulate and become a satellite government for Russia, because that, I guess, appeases Donald Trump, we have forgotten about what's going on over in Israel and Palestine in the Gaza war. Supposedly we had some 20 peace talk or peace agreement, excuse me. And we have a couple different situations. First of all, let's talk about what happened on Thanksgiving Day here in America on Thursday. A Reuters reporter was in Gaza and saw that 2 Palestinians had surrendered to Israeli soldiers, put their hands up in the air, were following all the orders. The Israeli soldiers turned them around, marched them into a building. The reporter heard gunshots, then later saw their dead, lifeless bodies on the ground with the Israeli soldiers hovering over them. So, after the Reuters reporter, and honestly, how scared was this person for their life? Like, I just wished I witnessed multiple homicides in a theater of war, which are illegal. They had given up. How scared was this reporter? But reported, Israel immediately responded. Israeli government and the police said we were going to conduct an investigation. And I can tell you right now, that investigation is going nowhere. I got a better chance of interviewing one of these ducks behind me than Israel actually coming down on their own soldiers. We know how that works. We have a government over there that commits war crimes. Benjamin Netanyahu commits war crimes each and every day. Hey, fun fact out of the New York Times today, that since the ceasefire, Israeli soldiers have killed over 300 Palestinians. Wow. You ever hear the saying, shooting fish in a barrel? I think they were talking about Israel's handling of this conflict in the ceasefire stage. So now they say there's going to be an investigation. We all know it's going to be a whitewash. These soldiers are going to face adjudication, or let's call it back. This report is actually going to be complete. It's all going to go into the dustbin. It's going to go into the trash bin. They're just going to wink, wink. Okay, go on. Go kill some more Palestinians. This case is going to be taken care of when Benjamin Netanyahu marches into court to face the corruption charges that have been hanging over his head for 5+ years. Good thing he can get out of it because he's in a war. He doesn't have a concierge Supreme Court like Donald Trump does that says, hey, you can do whatever you want. Don't worry about it. We got your back. But there's another story going on. And this one really, really makes me want to throw up. It makes me angry and it makes me just disgusted. So this week, the Trump administration announced plans to put Palestinians currently living in Israeli occupied Gaza into their own residential compounds. Now, let's get a background here. Israel is next to Gaza. Israel and Israeli citizens occupy about 50% of this territory. It's not theirs, but they just said, hey, we're just going to come in and make this our own little Airbnb, right? After this plan was leaked to the press, one international observer accurately, and I have to give credit, I wish I had a name here because I would love to give it to you. It's concentration camps within another concentration camp. Israel controls all of Gaza. They really control Gaza City. We've talked about that previously. They have a 20-foot fence around Gaza City. Their soldiers are at checkpoints getting in and out of the city. They allow traffic going out. Doesn't mean you get to come back in. They could stop you from going out. They have total control of it. If you want a real visual of what this is, it's like being in jail. Okay? They are the kids in cages, except they're grown-ups, and Israel's monitoring it. You know, Israel occupies over 50% of Gaza, right? So now we have 2 million, the 2 million Palestinians, and thank God it's 2 million, because Israel has killed over 150,000 in the last 2 years. They live in an area that is 60 square miles. To give you an idea of how big that is, that's about the size of the city of Dayton, Ohio. How many people live in Dayton, Ohio, John? 136,000. Wow. Wow. So 136,000 live in Dayton, but in Gaza, 2 million people have to live in that same area. 16 times the number. You ever been on a bus or a train that was all squished up? That's what these Palestinians deal with each and every day. But let's get some more fun facts here, because we're the scorched earth and we're going to call it like it is. The United Nations this week in a report said that 80% of the 250,000 buildings, that's commercial and residential, in Gaza have been totally destroyed. Wow. Wow. So when you see those pictures of rubbled buildings, of rubble edifices, that is basically the whole effing country. This is where it gets really disgusting and it gets really sick. So Tuesday, the New York Times said the U.S. proposal to build these Palestinian compounds in Gaza is alternative safe communities. Personally, I call it Auschwitz Light. Yeah, I said it, Auschwitz Light. We are taking people who are already in a concentration camp and separating them into smaller concentration camps. Now, supposedly, each compound will hold 25,000 Palestinians, and it's each one of them is going to cost in the tens of millions of dollars. Now, no word on who's going to pay for it, but I have a sneaking suspicion it won't be the U.S., and it sure as hell won't be Israel. We just pay for the grift. We pay for the high-rises that are going to have the Trump name on them in Gaza City. Now, according to the proposal, Israel will control when Palestinians can enter or leave all the compounds. Now, what happens is, and this is really where it gets disgusting. There's one section in the proposal it's called freedom of movement, and it notes that Israeli officials, for security reasons, Palestinians can only move into the compounds that they create, but can never leave. Wow, it's like literally the worst case scenario of in-laws. You know, they come for a weekend and next thing you know, they're putting plants in the front yard. You know what I'm saying right there, right? It is in-effing-sane. And it's just, Oh God, I don't even know where you go with this. It's just so bad, you know? So what we have is we have little communities in the 50%. First of all, 50% of Gaza is occupied by Israel. The other 50%, we have Israelis and Palestinians living, I guess, in harmony, whatever they're doing. Now they're going to separate them. They're going to build their own little compounds, and they're going to throw Palestinians into there. Wow. Happy Thanksgiving. And when you go in, you can never leave. What's the Eagles line? You could check in, but you can never leave. I think they were talking about what the Palestinians are going to have to deal with in this new plan. And this is the kind of details that those sadistic son of a guns over there in the Trump administration. Let's talk about Jared Kushner and all the pro Arab people out there who aren't really helping the Arab world. You know, they help the Arabs when it puts money in their pockets, but when it talks about the Palestinian people, the people in Gaza, the people who've been suffering for literally generations, they don't give an F. Straight don't give an F. And now, like the International Observer so astutely said, we got a concentration camp inside a concentration camp. And you know what the next thing is? It's called extermination. Auschwitz Light. Auschwitz Light. All right, let's go to our final story. And boy, oh boy, where do we start with this one? Senator Jim Justice this week came to an agreement with the IRS on paying some back taxes. Oh, kudos to you, Senator. Kudos to you. I will tell you, this is where the elites are so much different than us. And like we talk about, they want us to fight among each other so we don't watch the evil, corrupt stuff they're doing each and every day. And Jim Justice this week announced that he was going to pay $5 million in back taxes. We didn't get to see his tax forms. He's going to pay $5 million back in back taxes and negotiate to settle $8 million on tax liens against property he has. Now, this comes from a tax return in 2009. 2009. Let's see. Let's look in the time capsule. It's 2025. So 15 years after he filed it, he's still fighting. Oh, by the way, in 2021, Forbes announced he was a billionaire. Let's try and get our head around this for 1 second. The guy is a billionaire and he can't pay a $5 million tax bond? He can't settle an $8 million tax lien? I mean, hello? It is like saying, I got $100,000 and I got to pay a $50 fine. I mean, okay, but Jim Justice, and literally, could there be a more inappropriate name for a political Republican lawmaker? Justice. I couldn't think of it. I couldn't think of it. He said the charges were politically motivated. God, I wonder what playbook he got that out of. You know, we still haven't seen Donald Trump's tax returns. The New York Times revealed them a couple years ago, but, you know, for the most part, he still hasn't done it. They're under audit. Yeah, sure they are. It's called you're not paying the taxes and you don't care. But that is what millionaires do. I will say this, as somebody who has dealt with the wrath of the IRS, when you're an average citizen, it wrecks your life. It literally hangs over you like a black cloud, like what Donald Trump does to us each and every effing day. When the IRS is there, they can garnish your wages, they can attach liens on your house. Jim Justice didn't have any of that. He was just playing the game. I'm going to kick the can down the path, and then if I owe $20 million, they're going to settle for 10. Because they can't do anything to them. I got an idea. Why don't we talk about putting this SOB in jail? Isn't that part of the tax code? You know, like Pete Rose, Leona Helmsley, Willie Nelson, and oh wait, no, Willie didn't go because they told him to get out there and pay the $17 million back. We need you on the road, buddy. You know, why can't this guy who has broken federal law, yeah, be it tax law, why is he not in jail? He's owed the money for 15 effing years. Why is he not in jail? Just another politician. Fun fact, He voted for the big, beautiful bill, which gave billionaires continued their tax breaks. And I'm going to get into this down the road here, but I am a true economic populist. And basically what that means is the United States, this capitalist thing, has to change. We have to tweak it, because what is happening is the billionaires are getting more and more, and the people in the middle and lower class are getting less and less. They are squeezing us each and every day from literally 50 different angles. Look at everybody. Anybody out there? Are you going to get squeezed when these ACA credits expire at the end of the year? Remember last Monday, Donald Trump, this is Thanksgiving week, said he was going to come up with a plan to solve it? Huh. Yeah, right. Sure. You know, like in 2020 when he was going to come up with that new health plan in two weeks. We're still waiting, buddy. Been 5 years. You know, they want to cut us every way so that we can, then I know exactly what this is. They do not want us to retire. They want us to die on our jobs, on our backs, and on our knees. Because for some reason, they think $1 billion isn't enough. I've got to get another $1 billion. And we see that each and every day in this administration. Look, we have a guy, Donald Trump, who came in and on his first term, whether or not it's true, he was worth $1 billion, $2 billion. Now Forbes estimates he's worth $7 billion. Well, how did he do that? This is also a guy whose estimated wealth is $7 billion. And let me tell you, it's a lot more because he's got money in offshore accounts fed to him by the Arabians and Qatar and all his little buddies out there, you know, South Korea, Vietnam. Hey, you want to do business? Make sure you park $100 million in crypto in this offshore account. Donald Trump's the account. But this is a guy who is so vanilla, he is so evil, that he, even when he has $7 billion effing dollars, he is putting in an application to get $230 million from us, the taxpayer, because he feels that the DOJ went after him unlawfully in the 2016 Russian interference in our elections, which of course Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham both concurred was true. And then, you know, for the Mar-a-Lago thing, you know, where he had tens of thousands of documents illegally stored in his residence, which he did not have any right to have. And he says, well, you came in and you knocked on my door. I deserve $230 million. And he's going to get it. Because the people who make the decision on giving him the $230 million, at the end of the day, they work for him. I mean, really, can we make this up? And Jim Justice, he's just another one of these corrupt SOBs. And look, let's call it where it is. I'm not saying that there's not corruption on the Democratic side. Yeah, there is. They're doing it. But we are going after millions and the Republicans are going after billions. You know, it's kind of like the story. And for people out there who say that this doesn't matter, it's all the corruption, let me put it in a way that maybe will resonate a little more. You go to buy a car, okay? And there's only 2 dealerships you can buy it from in your town. And one dealership charges you $45,000 for the car, and they charge you 10% interest. And then the other guy over there charges you $40,000 and 6% interest. Now, are they both making money? Hell yeah. Is one making a lot more money than the other? Yeah. Is the one ripping you off a lot more? Are they gouging your eyes out and kicking your teeth in? Hell yeah. That's called Republican auto dealers. And I'm not saying the Democrats don't make it. Yeah, there's a lot of things we can do. But after the Democrats have seen this kind of corruption, they're going to be thinking, well, we don't have to walk the straight and narrow line when we get in power here in a year. We don't have to walk the straight and narrow line when we get in here in 2028 unless I'm president, because it's all going to change. You know, ethics, laws. But like we saw with Trump, I mean, I remember in 2017 when he came in and everybody was on the Democratic side and we were all shocked. And believe me, I was as shocked as anybody. I was in a MoveOn.org victory party for Hillary, and I could tell you that thing went sideways. And we talked about, well, he's going to have to sell the Trump hotel. He's going to have to put it in a trust and, you know, because the emoluments clause and he's not going to be able to profit. Oh my God. And then when we finally kicked him to the curb in 2020, he decided, well, I'm going to spend this next 3 years. I'm going to figure out how I can make some real money. Hey, how you doing, Cutter? Thanks for the jet. Oh, thanks for the golf resort. Hey, Vietnam, thanks for the golf resort. Indonesia, you're up next. Hey, Switzerland, thanks for the great Rolex. Thanks for the gold bar. It's worth 150 grand. Oh, by the way, we're going to take your tariffs down from 29% down to 14. Just a coincidence. All right. That's it today. I hope you and yours had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Love to everybody out there. Hit that like and subscribe, leave a comment, and we'll see you soon. Happy Black Friday on the Scorched Earth Political Podcast.